3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
All right, welcome back to Lessons and Blessings.
What it do? What it do?
It's your boy AJ and your favorite co-host
Shelly. Shell.
We're back with another week. We hope you guys have had a great week.
Facts.
Unfortunately, if your name is Drake, you have not.
No.
And maybe we'll talk about it.
We're gonna talk about it.
We're gonna talk about it. Now, if you're here and you're like, that's a little different. Well, I mean, it would be hard to miss. There's some pretty seismic waves in culture. A little bit. Mm-hmm. And as somebody, maybe you got a different experience in this than I do. I like Kendrick as an artist. Mm-hmm. I don't listen to a lot of rap because I know it gets me
aggressive.
in an aggressive headspace. It makes me somebody I don't want to be as much, right? And thankfully, I think when we were growing up, Christian hip hop had kind of evolved to where it was actually like good beats and not just like cheesy.
Cringy.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Aubrey Graham, we hardly knew you. Rest in peace.
That's his government name, bro. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, he's going to be on some government watch list and some registry. So, tough week for Drizzy.
I'm just saying, like, we played the instrumental, and it's constantly to the very first one with Metro. I'm just like, man, this instrumental is tough.
Yeah, so I think some of probably what we're going to talk about today is going to include just even kind of what happens to us as we listen to music, and other things like what we fill our mind with, what we fill our body with. I thought it's been a really fun time whenever this like beef first came out. It's been something that Whitney and I would always just kind of, hey, new one dropped, and they were dropping crazy there for like 3 days. It was like he just dropped
40
again.
minutes later. What? Who?
Drake dropped. Kendrick had one loaded up 40 minutes later.
He's already had his finger on the trigger, bro.
It was crazy, and it was a fun experience. And I don't fill my life with that kind of music because I know what it does to me. Mm-hmm. So I think like we're not necessarily going to have the conversation of like all this music is bad, all this kind of stuff. I think it comes down to a lot of different factors, but I do know that like there is something to be said about honestly, in a way, the control that a crazy beat has on me. Mm-hmm. Like, and as somebody like genuinely, a majority, like 99% of what I listen to is worship music. Mm-hmm. Most of the time when I'm driving, I've got my phone plugged in, I've got worship songs on there, and I just jam, and I love worship. And every now and then, like, there's this kind of void in what you listen to. I talk like workout tracks. Like what gets my blood pumping, what gets me ready to go to war, what gets me ready. And this is a great example that even though half the words that are in those songs I can't say, I'm not gonna say.
I can say them, but I'm not gonna say them.
They hit different.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Yeah.
What do you think about overall this last couple of weeks with Kendrick and Drake?
So the interesting thing, I'm not on social media at all.
Same.
So I didn't even know it was happening until somebody mentioned. I was like, "What? They're beefing for what?" That was my first question.
What?
That was my first question. Like, what's going on? I never understood the source. Nobody ever explained it. They're just dropping diss tracks. I would say that's probably the best thing that's happened in rap in the last 10 years.
Oh yeah, it's incredibly good.
You have
the
the two mega stars going at it. I mean, for the rap game, it just does something. I'm not saying it's good, but if you're into that scene, it just kind of gives you like, oh, get a little energy, you know?
Yeah.
Like granted, I don't listen to that type of music like that no more.
Right.
Now, if I was in college, boy, I'd have been in there like swimwear, bro, for real.
Crazy.
I would have been in there like, I'd have knew all the words to all the songs already, and probably mess around trying to freestyle my own stuff, even though it'd be bad. But
you still might. There's
caveat. There's no such thing as a bad freestyle, because the whole point of a freestyle is your style, so it can't be bad. It's your style anyway. So do you?
Could it be bad for you? Like, could you have a bad freestyle based off of what you can do?
That's depending on the person. But somebody can't tell me I had a bad freestyle if they don't know my style.
But what if they do their style?
Then that's between you and them.
I was like, that's such cap, bro. Like, if I gave a bad freestyle, knowing what I can give, then it's bad. But you can't look at the best I do and be like, yeah, you suck, bro. Like, it's a freestyle,
garbage.
Yeah, shut up.
Bum. Nah, but along the lines of the influence that music has, we're playing instrumental, like literally just listen to the instrumental just because it's we're both musically our ears are tuned to it. So we listen to all like the little things like the chimes and the like the xylophone, all these little small subtle noises that most people wouldn't pay attention to. I was like, "Ooh, that's cool. I did that there. That's cool. I did that there." But as you listen to it, we're both like, I can like punch somebody right now. Like AJ was saying, I can run a marathon. Next thing you know, you start swinging that. Start swinging at people.
It just makes you aggressive.
And what's interesting about that is it opens up the conversation. Is when it comes to like, okay, should I listen to secular music or not?
Right.
I was always told it only depends on the lyrics. But I've had a change of mindset.
Interesting.
I had a change of mindset because I love EDM music. I go crazy to EDM music. It just speaks to my crackhead energy that I have.
That is true.
And give me a good hard style song with 140 BPMs or higher.
Right.
I'm in full body sweat, sitting still. Like my heartbeat.
Let me not be able to figure out what's my heartbeat and what's the bass. Like you've been in a concert or something like that where your heart like you lose it.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm at. I'm about to die, bro.
It's like,
it really feels like a out of body experience. You're like, and then it comes back, but. It's like the influence that it has. Like, okay, if you can take a beat and that beat is meant to, has a purpose for whatever reason, right? You listening to that beat, you are subscribing to that purpose of the beat. Even if mentally it's like, I don't agree with that, but you can't help it because that's what the beat is meant to do.
Right.
In the nature of the diss track, the whole point of a diss track is to be aggressive,
right? Is
to tear the other person down, is to expose them and be disrespectful. And so when you have a beat like that, coupled with the lyrics, once you hear it, you can't separate it.
Yeah.
Now, if you'd have heard the beat apart from the lyrics, maybe for the first time, maybe you can make that separation.
Sure.
And can have maybe a different undertone to it when you write or different whatever.
Lens.
But it's regardless. A beat like that with some hard hitting 808s, you're not gonna be rapping about sunshines and rainbows.
Yeah,
whatever you say, it can be godly things. It's gonna be aggressive.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No, it's a great point. I think that it opens up kind of this much bigger conversation around the fact that like whatever we're consuming has a goal for us. Mm-hmm. It has a goal for us, and it wants to do something. It wants to communicate. It wants to feel a certain way. Like I don't think that it's a bad thing that a beat makes you feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. What it's trying to get you to do, though, and what you might be filling up. Like if you're just only in that headspace, that's the only kind of music you listen to. I think it's about having this kind of self-awareness that everything is trying to manipulate me. Mm-hmm. And manipulate is a heavy word, and maybe I'll be able to kind of parse that out here in a little bit, but like everything has a goal for me.
An agenda.
Right? Everything is trying to do something. And let's not just pretend this is secular world. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the way that we construct worship sets, sometimes the way that we get up at the end of a sermon and we're trying to convey this thing, we're trying to make it emotionally effective, right? You start instead of hearing kind of maybe a lot of these bright and major chords, you start hearing some minors and some diminished, and all of a sudden you have a like emotional reaction to the things that you're hearing. At best, I think it helps create an atmosphere where you can really engage and work with some of those things, because music communicates things to us.
It's a tool.
It does, and I don't think it's bad. Like, and I don't think manipulate. I think the better word, everything affects us.
There we go.
Everything affects us. Everything has an effect on us. But when, potentially we sat in services where we thought God was moving and it was just the key player. Mm-hmm. And they were moving their fingers, and that was pulling our heartstrings. Mm-hmm. And so we thought, oh man, God really moved, and maybe we missed what God was actually trying to do because we got kind of swept up in this emotional moment. Mm-hmm. So I don't mean to make it sound like it's like only one form of this, right? In the house sometimes, depending on where you go to church, like they want you to feel a certain way. But I think it's about having the self-awareness. I don't think everybody's the same in this. But the self-awareness to know, hey, what's affecting me? How is it affecting me? And where am I comfortable and uncomfortable? Like, what is that line for me? Because I remember listening to that with Whitney was fun. And be like, oh my gosh, he said this. This is crazy, all that kind of stuff. And I knew after that first initial kind of couple listens to catch what he was saying. Because for one, if you don't know anything about me, I love wordsmithing. I love figuring out clever ways to say things. I love people who can do that. I love poets. I just love the ability to communicate exactly what you're trying to say. And I love moments where people can communicate something like that's a little veiled too. And then like everybody has that moment like, oh my gosh, he's saying X, Y, and Z. That is crazy. But if I would have continued to listen to it, now all of a sudden I'm thinking about it on the way to work, bro. I'm in work and it's popping in my head, all that kind of stuff. I get more aggressive as it, like my energy changes. For you, as somebody that, you know, has kind of distanced yourself a little bit from that experience, was it like making you become somebody you didn't want to, or was it just a conscious decision like, hey, I just don't want to find out what happens?
I would say it's a little bit of conscious and subconscious. Because like you say, like we're constantly taking in information. Yeah. Right? Like with my eyes, my ears, all of my senses, I'm constantly taking in information. It's said that the brain never forgets anything that you've ever seen, that you've ever heard, that you've ever tasted. You never forget it. But we don't have the mental capacity to always have it in front of us. Yeah, to always
bring it back up.
Yeah. Sure. And so it compartmentalizes itself in various different forms, right? You see it a lot through trauma. You see it a lot through stress, big time. You see it a lot through your health. You don't realize how stressed you are until you have something going on in your body. You're like, wait a second, when did this happen? Yeah. And then, I started this job 6 months ago. I wasn't like that before. All of a sudden, now my cortisol levels are through the roof. Now I can't sleep, and I'm having all these other things. Right. It's the same thing when it comes to what we are intaking in our ear. And so for me, like the biggest thing, when I became serious about my faith in 2020 was, okay, I know I had to change the music I listen to, because if you look at my Spotify rap, 99% of it was rap. Yeah. And wasn't just like regular, like trap. I don't know what it was. I didn't grow up like that. Yeah. I wasn't in those scenes like that for real. I mean, I was around it. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't grow up in it. And I'm saying that I was looking for like an outer body. I want to live vicariously through them so I can experience that. It just resonated with me because, like I said, I've always loved music and the hard 808. I'm an 808 junkie. Yeah. I'm a bass head. I buy headphones based on bass. I buy earphones based on bass. Like if I'm at a concert, I want to be next to the sub. I might come back deaf, but it was a good experience for me. And so what I realized is when it came to my language, I could not taper my language because of the music that I was constantly feeding myself. Yeah. Like I'm talking about, I'm listening to music 10 hours a day. Right. One, because didn't like my own thoughts. We're not going to get into that. There it is. We're not going to get into that. We're not going to get into that. We're going to get into that in another episode. But because of that, so heavy, it was pouring in, and I have an opposite reaction of, okay, I don't want to say this, I don't want to say this, I don't want to say this. I'm doing myself a disservice. Yeah. Because I'm pretty much just playing with fire, waiting to get burned eventually. And so the person, I would say I wasn't becoming like a drug dealer or like a gang member or something like that, but like the little things you don't realize that you start doing is like sexualizing. Yeah, sure. Different things like that, like talking about people and being more willing to act out the things that are in the music, even though you might not believe it, but because it's been so fed to you so much subconsciously, you were taking all that stuff in against your better judgment. You're like, wait, I'm not gonna do that. Yeah. But let you have one bad day. Let somebody say something crazy to you just on the wrong time, at the wrong day, at the right moment. Yeah. And all of that stuff's coming back up. Yeah. And it's like, whoa, I didn't know that was back there. I didn't know it was in there. And so it starts in the head, then it seeps its way to the heart, and now all of a sudden, now you're becoming what you're listening to. Yeah. And that's a dangerous thing, because there are studies, to get to a little bit political. There are studies that show, I can speak only in the black community. Sure. There are studies that show that it's the music that our community listens to that has influenced us the worst. It's up there with fatherless homes. Wow. And so if you look at both of those different metrics, I have fatherless homes, and then I have music that's glorifying, being a single dad, killing and womanizing, sure, drugs and all these different stuff. That's not helpful. Yeah. That doesn't, push me to, say, education. It doesn't push me to father a child and take care of a wife and only have one wife at that. Right? It doesn't push me to monogamy. It doesn't push me to these good values. And don't get me wrong, there is really good secular rap out there, right, where people actually talk about life-bearing things, about getting the education and taking care of your stuff and being good and loving to your neighbor and all this different stuff. But eventually you have to really take hold. Okay, why am I listening to this? Yeah. Because if I'm a Christian and these are my set of standards, I wish I had a camera. I'm drawing a picture with my left hand.
He's got his hand up.
if I'm a Christian on my left hand, I have these set of standards of things that I want to exemplify, like love, peace, joy, kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, all these different things. And on my right hand, I'm filling myself with none of that, the opposite, hatred, jealousy, bigotry, and racism, and all these different things that happen in music. How can I expect to live out my Christian life the way I'm supposed to?
Right.
I'm just setting myself up for failure.
Yeah.
And so, not saying that I'll be lying to you if I say I don't listen to secular music, but I know my limit.
Yeah.
Like, I was a huge J. Cole fan. I used to be a huge Eminem fan. I can only listen to it for like max 10 minutes.
Right.
After that, I can't, because I'm gonna start thinking about it, like you're saying. I'm gonna start quoting it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm rapping a song, and now I can't censor myself.
Yeah.
All these different things. I know my limit. So why would I just? You could say, okay, why don't you just cut out completely? I mean, some of the songs are just good. They're just good songs. Now, some of them I'm not gonna listen to at all. I'm like, yo, I can't get down with that. I can't get down with that. But this one, you know what? Like, you're not talking about anything inherently bad. It's just a lot of profanity in the song, and I know what I'm prone to do. And so that's kind of my experience with kind of cutting it out and then being really careful on what I dabble in, because I know I will start to take on a persona first with my language, and then will be my mind, and then with my mind, then be my actions long term. Not like immediately, like it's not like I hear a song and all of a sudden, like I'm a different person.
Yeah, you're swinging on the street.
Nah, like that ain't it. They don't work like that, but yeah.
Unless you listen to who's that NBA young boy.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe that happened. I've heard his stuff. Yeah, it is. I think this is one of those areas too where honestly, and I could be wrong in this, and maybe in 5 years or something, I completely change my mind. Like I reserve the right to change my mind about stuff like this. But I feel like this is an area where it just feels like we get a little bit old grumpy Christian on.
True.
That we're like, we don't listen to nothing that doesn't talk about God. It's like, okay, do you only watch Christian TV?
Right.
Do you only watch Christian movies?
Right.
Do you only read the Bible or Christian books?
It's a short list of things that you can indulge in.
Yeah, and not only that, it's, if we're being honest, I think in like present day, I think like our the quality of some of the content and stuff that comes out from Christian places just hasn't quite caught up yet. And so that doesn't mean that we need to just jump ship to whoever's making the best kind of show, right? Because just because you have a great quality of show doesn't mean it's good for your soul. But I think it's like, it's just one of those areas that we arbitrarily draw a line, and then we're like, yeah, this isn't, because like I love Coldplay. They're not Christian.
Right.
But they're also not in there talking about like being a bad person, being vile, those kinds of things. Like, they just make good music. And the other thing is that I think you just have to be attention to what you're drawn to. Like I think the fact that you bring up kind of fatherlessness and this music as a connection is really telling. Like there's a void there.
Yeah.
And so where maybe a father wasn't there, music steps in, because music is a cathartic experience. And I think when done well, sometimes those music help you kind of even process a little bit of what's going on. But depending on the music you're listening to and what they're trying to sell you or how they're trying to affect you, you might end up taking on somebody else's emotions instead. And now you're wearing somebody else's armor. And we've talked about this beforehand, and Whitney and I talk about this a lot, but the idea of trauma or unresolved emotional things, if you haven't kind of been inward enough to grow and to look at your past and understand why you tick the way you do, it doesn't always have to be because something traumatic happened to you.
Right.
But you don't need something traumatic just to know yourself. That's important. You need to know yourself. That's true. I need to know why I'm drawn to these things. If I'm being honest and self-aware enough, I'm drawn to the aggressive beat because I don't know how to let out my anger well. And so this is a conversation I had with Whitney this week about, hey, I think that when some of this stuff happened with my family this past year, where, we've had some strained relationships, we've had some things, and Sheldon knows and has sat in here and had conversations where he's like, oh man, I think he's angry about this, like I, because of my experience growing up, never found a healthy way to regulate and to express anger. I always kind of kept it under wraps. And so now I find myself trying to kind of reintegrate anger into my emotional spectrum, into my tool bag, if you will. Yeah. Because it is a tool and it should be expressed.
Yeah, be angry, but don't sin.
But when you don't know how to do it, and then I'm like, oh man, I just really get with this song. Like, I don't know what it is about it. It's like, yeah, it's helping your body express this anger or this aggression that because you weren't able to speak up in your childhood, Now your brain's like, we like that.
Yeah.
The idea is whenever you have the kind of these emotions or things that you kind of bury, think about it like a highway. When I experience an emotion, so let's say that I get frustrated, okay? Have you ever been around people that like, they like lose it over small things? And you're like,
It's been a minute, but yeah.
Yeah, when you think about like even like road rage, for instance, somebody doesn't use their blinker. I'm this guy all the time. I use my blinker. I get incredibly frustrated when somebody doesn't. I'm just like, you're an idiot. Like immediately, I'm just like, you're stupid and all this kind of stuff. And then I'm like, hey, why don't I handle X, Y, and Z in a way that like makes sense, like is equal to what actually happened?
Yeah.
When there are plenty of people that are like, nah, I didn't use this blinker, whatever, and they move on, right? But if I look at that, it's like, oh, because I feel kind of a light version of that, and there are emotions that are trying to come out and that are buried, they will grab hold of that emotion and it's like they'll just pull them all out. So like, why am I overreacting to this? Why am I having such a reaction to this music? Maybe it's because it's hitting an area that you have buried, and now all of those feelings and emotions are hitching a ride out with it. And now you're like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I just think as Christians, everybody's line might be a little bit different in this area, but we have to, no matter who we are, be aware enough to know, hey, what am I drawn to? What am I like lured in by? What things do like really kind of have control over me? And why do they have that power? Right? It's not just that it does. What's the reason? As we've walked through, even what does it look like to heal from pornography addictions and lust? It's like, yes, those things are bad, but what have they tried to meet? What need have they been trying to fulfill? Why am I drawn to that? Sometimes I think in culture, we're given this like, yeah, you like it because men like it.
Right.
And it's like,
that ain't it.
Okay, but what if the conversation is that a majority of men like it because a majority of men struggle with brokenness like this? That's a different conversation.
Facts.
Right? So I think with music, it's the same thing. Why am I drawn to what I'm drawn to? How can I experience a cathartic, and can I be aware enough to know when maybe music has me and it's like the emotions are bleeding into me rather than being a cathartic release out? But it's a tricky slope, man.
I think you hit on a very, very, very interesting, you hit on a very good point of it being a cathartic experience.
Right.
Because the reason why music works is because it speaks past what you see.
Right.
It speaks past genuinely what you hear.
Yeah.
You feel it.
It cuts through.
You feel it. Like there are songs that you hear for the first time that just you always hear it resonate with my soul.
Bruh.
You hear that all the time. There's sometimes I hear a song, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm having an out of body experience. It's reverberating through every one of my cells in my entire body, right? It's meant to do that.
Yeah.
Like, think about who created music.
Right.
If God created music to communicate something to us, then our bodies are meant to receive it in a certain way. That's why it's one of the universal languages.
Yep.
Music, dance, I think food.
Art.
All of it. Food, yeah.
Things people like,
Things people like, yeah. Nothing crazy. But I think there's something to be said about our response to it, especially when we don't know we're having a response to it.
Yeah.
Because I remember it was about, I think it was in January or maybe December when Jackie Hill Perry was like, I'm doing a music fast. I'm going to listen to any music.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try that.
Yep.
And before I get to the interesting part, I was looking up studies. Okay, like what does music do?
Right.
Like to the body. And some of it was crazy. No matter where you are, what you're doing, your ears are tuned to hear it.
Yeah.
Even if you're consciously not hearing, you're taking it in.
Right.
And your body is responding. You can't. Sometimes so subtle you won't notice, but your heartbeat will match the beat of the music. If you go to the EDM concert, there are certain things that they do, just like you're talking about for a sermon, that they will start at a certain level, and I forgot the term for it, but it's this rhythm that it almost people call like the trance or whatever, but it syncs up with everybody's heart rate syncs up with the beat, and then once everybody's get to that certain level of synergy, I would say,
yeah.
Then he can move the crowd. He or she, the DJ, can move the crowd.
You're all on board.
Low, high, crazy. They can do whatever they want with it. But we don't realize the influence that the things around us are having on us. That's what I'm thinking right now. A verse coming to mind is like to be sober minded.
Right.
if I am sober minded, I think that self awareness piece. Okay, I need to be aware of why I am so attuned to this. Like you were saying, that aggression. Right. For me, I love a good 808. One comes like, man, this is just. It sends like a shock to my body. A nice, clean, heavy 808. I'm like, ooh, that's nice. That's nasty. But the other part is there's this aggression that's in me that I can't let out.
Yeah.
Like I just want, like today, for example, I have not practiced. I was practicing by myself today. I was hitting serve. And usually I probably hit maybe 50 or 60.
Yeah.
But today I probably hit close to 200. And I didn't stop. I was like serve after serve after serve after serve. And I felt all this energy. I guess it was pent up energy because I had played golf before. And I was like having a terrible round because freaking mosquitoes was all over the place. I couldn't focus. I had a whole bunch of stuff going through my head.
Yeah.
And so I got back to the court, did a lesson, and I started to serve. And I'm locked in. Like I'm like as hard as I can.
Yeah, rhythmically.
Yes, over and over. And I'm sitting there, not a single thought going through my mind.
Yeah.
That was pure aggression.
Flow state.
Coming out. And I ain't gonna lie, I was serving pretty nice.
Yeah,
I should have recorded that. But I was like, why am I so aggressive right now? It's pent up. Could it be? Before these diss tracks, I wasn't listening to nothing like that. I was listening to it a decent amount this week.
Yeah.
Mostly because people sent it to me. I was listening to it. But
for sure.
I was like, I like the beats. I'll put the beat on repeat because I just like it.
Instrumental.
I like it. And so like it goes back to the thing, like if I'm sober minded, I got to be cognizant of how I'm responding to these things because it's showing me that I am responding to this specific thing. I don't relate with Taylor Swift's music.
Right.
The lyrics and the beats don't do anything for me. But that's why she's so popular to a whole bunch of other people because they can relate with the lyrics and they can relate with the instrumental and how she puts that together with also part of her personality and all that stuff that goes with that.
Sure.
But that's why like certain music will grip you. If you hear music from a different country that you've never heard before,
right,
all of a sudden you're gonna start dancing, but you're gonna move a very specific part of your body. You have never seen them dance. You're gonna move a certain part of your body. It's interesting. Like you can hear samba. All of a sudden, like
it makes sense.
You move your shoulders. Yeah. You can hear the Indian music. All of a sudden, now you're moving your hips a lot. You're like, what? Like, why is that? We don't know why it is. We can't explain why it is, but the music has an effect on you because it's supposed to.
Right.
And that's where I think that's where you get the fork in the road. Okay, what is the purpose of what I am listening to?
Yeah.
And what was the artist's intent behind the song that they created for me to listen to?
Right.
And so that's where I'm like, okay, I think you can listen. Like it's what Paul says, everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial.
Yep.
So you can listen to literally, as a Christian, you listen to whatever you want.
Yep.
But is it benefiting you?
Yep.
Is it pushing you towards Christ, or is it pushing you towards yourself, towards sin, towards worldliness, whatever that could be? Right. If you're a person that literally you can listen to those stuff, all those things, and not have any inkling of like, oh, I'm good. Like genuinely, kudos to you. Praise God that He has protected you and allowed you to be in the world, not of it. But for most of us, the stuff we listen to is gonna affect us in more ways than we will be willing to admit.
Right. Yeah, because like we're talking about it being a cathartic thing, in a lot of ways that opens up a door for music to be a coping mechanism.
Oh, that was a huge one for me.
And it opens up a lot of different kind of avenues for you to experience emotion through song because it connects the chord structure, the lyrics. They just hit that one level where all of those emotions sit. And we have a really strong emotional connection to it. And so I don't think coping strategies are wrong. Mm-hmm. And if you can only do something one way, like let's say that I'm sad, but I can't express sadness until I listen to a sad song. It's the only way I can do it. Otherwise, I can't access that. That means that something is going on emotionally and in my brain that I can't access those emotions until the right kind of blah, 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 blah. And a lot of times when we talk about trauma and stuff like this, from what I know, a lot of it has to do with safety. A lot of it has to do with what you kind of have just gotten used to. And so there's a deeper question to be asked. I don't think we have to villainize the fact that we emotionally connect with music. I mean, when you talked about it, I was like, immediately, I thought 8th grade, broken heart, the script, 9th grade, broken heart, the script. 10th grade, broken heart, the script. 11th grade, broken heart, the script. 12th grade, broken heart, the script. 13th grade, broken heart, the script. 14th grade, broken heart, the script. 15th grade, broken heart, the script. 16th grade, broken heart, the script. 17th grade, broken heart, the script. 18th grade, broken heart, the script. 19th grade, broken heart, the script. 20th grade, broken heart, the script. 21st grade, broken heart, the script. 22nd grade, broken heart, the script. 23rd grade, broken heart, the script. 24th grade, broken heart, the script. 25th grade, broken heart, the script. 26th grade, broken heart, the script. 27th grade, broken heart, the script. 28th grade, broken heart, the script. 29 Break Even. I was like, dude, that song now, when I hear it as a 26-year-old, I'm happily married and have been for the past 3.5 years. And immediately I'll go right back to like, oh man,
bro,
this sucks. I think Coldplay, Viva La Vida, it's a real nostalgic song to me. And sometimes because it reminds us, it almost helps us capture memories and feelings of what it was like to be that age and what was going on during that time. That's the same way. Like if you ever had a song with a significant other and you guys break up and you hear that song again,
it's going to invoke all those emotions and memories.
What you associated with it will come back up to the surface. It's recall. And so it's like, do I think that the script or Coldplay have nefarious goals for me? No. I think they make music that I resonated with and I connected with. However, just like anything else as a Christian, I think the underlying question, does it have me or do I have it? Who's in control? Because if I'm at the whim of whatever an artist decides, if I'm saying an artist can get whatever they want out of me because they alter the way they play 4 chords, and I'm just a puppet on a string, there's some deep work to be done there. And so it's like, I will continue to use music to connect with as those things come up. And we just shouldn't be like, I'm just tired of us being the kind of people, Christians in this generation, just like, yeah, I mean, I have this response. I get all this information from my body and I just get this response. I don't know. It's weird. Like, what do you mean? Go find out. Do some digging. Like, get to know why. Nothing happens just because a lot of times. Like, it's not because, like, oh, yes, you like what you like, and I get that, but why do you like what you like? What's underneath it? If we dig just a little bit deeper and we make sure, blah, 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 blah. Because what happens when you do come against an artist that only cares about getting you to feel a certain way so that they can sell money, so that or sell tickets, or they can do this or whatever, or influence culture this way? It's like, now hold on now. Everything affects us. Not to the same degree, not to the same level. Like, I'm sure that there are some people too. Like, when we think about media, I would draw a line, I think, when it comes to sexualized content or any sort of adult kind of scene in a movie. I would probably draw that boundary a lot earlier than a lot of people. Because I know my experience, and I know my history. I coped with those kind of scenes. So what happens is I recognize that had me. It had me. So guess what? Now I say, all right, then I'm not going to go back into that. So now I have a boundary set in place that maybe other people don't have. In the same way that it's like, I feel like sometimes as Christians, we can't hold things in tension. We can't have kind of two opposite ideas and let them exist in one space. Like, as a Christian, I believe you can drink alcohol and you can enjoy a gift that God has given us, and we're not supposed to become drunk. I think you can enjoy what God has provided, and if it has you, you shouldn't do it. So I don't care how long you've been sober. If you're an alcoholic, you shouldn't be around it. Right? Because your experience, your coping strategy, whatever it is, exposed in you that, man, this is the weird thing, right? Because if as a non-alcoholic person, I'm just not really drawn to it. I just don't really care for it. Maybe in the next, couple of years, maybe I find stuff. Also, I'm cheap. I just don't like spending money on a lot of fancy stuff, right? And maybe that's somewhat it is. But like, I look at them, I just don't understand what's so appealing about it. I don't understand why some people want to go into lose control of themselves. Like, what are you running from? And then I look in the mirror and I'm like, I bet there are plenty of people that look at my pornography addiction when I was in high school the same way. Well, I didn't like it either. I was running from something. So then the question becomes, now do I come out and I make a rule that nobody can drink alcohol? No, you can't drink. I can't drink alcohol if I struggle with it, but you can. That's fine. But then Paul brings up as well, hey, just be careful. People are watching you. Don't be the reason somebody else falls into it. So that's I think a better part of the conversation as well, is what you participate in, people watch. So it's always about being above reproach. And like I said, I think that line is different for different people. And I think there are a lot of us that extend that line too far out because we're just like, yeah, but it's different for me. I don't feel convicted. Or maybe you started, when you were younger, just telling God to shut up about it. And so now he doesn't tell you anymore. The Holy Spirit's like, he don't listen to us anyway. what are we talking about? It's like, I'm not convicted. No, you're calloused. You couldn't tell.
There
anyway.
it is. Differency.
So, that line's going to be different for people. But I think in any pursuit, in any line, this is why I'll go here. This is why we talk about music, and then those same people that get like, I hate rap, or I don't want to do this, or I don't listen to any kind of that devil worshiping music, all that kind of stuff. And then they are a slave to their job. What's the difference? There's not one. It has you, and you're coping and you're running from something. So instead of putting your big boy pants on and getting to work about what's deep in there and what you need to work through and what you need to work out, instead of just passing it on to your kids, you say, why am I naturally drawn to working hard and not working hard, overdoing it? Why would I rather be a better employee than a present husband, son, brother, whatever it is? Why is that more appealing to me? And then you go to therapy or you talk to some people and you're like, oh, that's because I'm running from this.
Yeah.
So in anything we're saying here, we're not here to tell you, I don't feel qualified to tell you what the line is. I don't think I could. I couldn't do a broad stroking thing. In general, I think if you're going to err on a side, it should be the side of caution.
Right.
And at the same time, it's like, no, man, like there are plenty of people I know that listen to music and are drawn to certain music that I'm not. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to be the guy that struggles listening to death metal too much. Just doesn't, it just doesn't draw me in. It doesn't draw me in. But I am the kind of guy to get aggressive and sad. And so when I get a sad song and then I'm like, and instead of having a cathartic experience, I have like a sinking. I just fall into it. It's just about, hey, let me check in with me often. What's going on here? Why do I like this? Is it okay for me? What is it trying to tell me about what I'm feeling? Just be curious about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say this. I know you say you don't feel like you're qualified to say what the line is. I'm going to say, I think what I believe the line is.
Shoot.
If the music is not, I'm saying that is not. If the music is glorifying, this is my line, I would say.
Yeah.
If it's glorifying sex, if it's glorifying gang violence, if it's glorifying drug use, any type of abuse, whether it be physical, substance, media, anything that harms you or the people around you, don't listen to it. And that cuts out a lot of music that you can listen to. Because there are some artists, they're like, oh, but they're not that bad of a person. But if you listen to the lyrics, you're like, wait a second. They're literally talking about burning their ex's car. Like, what do you... That's crazy.
Carrie Underwood, we're looking at you.
Got
she had that one about slashing tires or something like that.
Got him.
Okay, I'm kidding.
Carrie, if you listen to this,
hit us up.
Yeah, we'd love to have you on the pod.
I knew
we'd love to have you on the pod. Nah, but that's what I say the line is.
Yeah.
And now then this is where you're like, okay, well, if you draw a line, then do I never listen to it all? Or can I like tiptoe near the line? Again, it goes based on your convictions. If you have them.
If you have them, it's crazy.
Because like you said, a lot of times you've grown callous. The bunny trying to eat this cord. Not today. Not this one. This one got some electricity.
Wiggles, our bunny, just showed up. They call it the spicy hay. Is any sort of like electrical wire that they like to eat.
The spicy hay is
they just be crunching.
Yeah, she got a little bit of it.
If she will.
Yeah. But that line needs to be, okay, crystal clear. One, between you and the Lord, you need to know what that line is. And two, bring that crystal clear line to your community. Yeah. Because if you didn't know, say I had a conviction that, bro, I really can't listen to like really no secular rap. Whatever reason, God just convicted me not to do that. And we bump it in the car and we listen to whatever. Something, even though you listen to rap, but say for example, you did. Right. And you're doing that, and internally, I'm like struggling. Like, man, I really want to listen to this, but I know I shouldn't be listening to this. I feel like I'm being disobedient, but I haven't told you nothing. Who's in the wrong? Me. Right? You're not doing anything bad. You think we're just chilling in the car, just vibing.
Yeah.
But I'm out here fighting for my life internally.
Yeah.
And so it's up to me to like, hey, this is what this is. This is what this is. Like, for example, I have a few friends who is a whole nother controversial thing, like cursing and stuff. I said, hey, respectfully, I don't want you to curse around me because it's going to make me want to curse.
Sure. And
I've been convicted not to use that language.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think all Christians should not use that language, personally. Sure. Now, people say, is that conviction? Is that biblical? What is cursing? What does that actually mean? It was different back then. It's different now. Who sets the standards? Who makes the Then it gets all mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
But I will say, for me, this is what, hey, as my brother in Christ, I believe you can refrain from using 3 words. I promise it's not that bad. I'm not asking you not to drink water, like something that's essential.
Right.
You don't need to use that language. You like to use that language. I would respect if you didn't use that around me. I still love you. Still want to hang out with you, but I just don't want to be in that space. And 100% of the time, like, oh yeah, bro, for sure.
Yeah.
It's never like, bro, I'm not doing that. Like, kick rocks.
Yeah.
If they do that, you need a different friend.
Yeah.
I mean, a different friend. But
you're not going to lose anything that you shouldn't lose.
Yeah.
You know. I think that when we talk about this, because I know me. And I know a lot of people kind of our age and even coming up, I think that we have to be so careful. And I'm going to try to be gentle, and I'm also going to be blunt. And I'm going to walk that tension. I think you need to be self-aware enough whether or not you can call your own fouls anyway. Because there are plenty of people that I know, and I have been this guy. Well, I don't feel convicted like this. And my relationship with God does not look like somebody who would have the authority to decide for themselves what is good and bad for me. So if I'm like in disobedience in a lot of other areas of my life, I am living in habitual sin. And then I'm like, yeah, I don't really feel convicted about this one thing. It's like, yeah, your compass is off anyway.
Right.
You couldn't know what the line was. And so even I think this will be a little bit difficult, I think, to kind of tease out. But even your subjective conviction, air quotes on subjective here, has to be based in objective truth.
Yeah.
Like both of us can't come to the scripture and make scripture say something it doesn't say.
Facts.
Right? So I can't go to scripture and say, well, I'm just convicted differently. And if you come to me and you say, hey, I don't want to use curse word, don't do that all the time. And then if I come and I show you scripture and I'm like, yeah, but right here, God says he wants us to cuss. Like, it doesn't say that. Right. Like, you're not going to find that.
Right.
And so it's not just a free-for-all. You don't just get to come in and be like, yeah, but when I read this verse, the way that I interpret it is that God actually deems it's necessary to curse and that Christians should do that all the time. That's not objective. There's no gray area when we twist scripture to mean something it completely doesn't mean. Now, there are times where I think there are things that are gray. And there are things that are up to your interpretation and your personal conviction on the matters. Absolutely. And at the same time, I think, like, perfect example. Before I got married, and I'm trying to hold the line of purity before I get married. I don't know if 20-year-old AJ is the wisest person to ask how far he's allowed to go in relationship physically before he gets married. I just don't think it's a great ask. I feel like at best, like best case scenario,
eye contact. That's it.
The issue is the risk reward of that is like, you hit him at a good time and maybe he still goes over the line. Because all he's thinking about, all the hormones are telling him all this information. I think that's why community is so important, because to have not just the self-awareness to know what's going on, but the self-awareness to understand when we can't see ourselves. And we say, hey, you see me.
What do you see?
Have I been different this week? I've started to listen to this kind of rap again, or I've started to listen to this kind of music, or I've been watching this, I've been consuming this kind of content, and I think I'm okay. But what do you think? What have you seen? And I promise you, more often than you would like, somebody's like, actually, I think you have been a little different. You responded a little bit different this way, or you became somebody I didn't quite know. It was just a little bit different. That doesn't mean that they're always right, but I think it's just about like having windows into your life where somebody's allowed and they have the space to say, hey, I feel like your vibe's been different this week. Is everything okay? Because I guarantee you, if you are doing life well with other people, there are going to be people that are like, I'm not going to lie to you. I feel like you've been a little unhinged this week. I think you were overstepping a little bit. I think you were this way a little bit. So it's the self-awareness to understand when we shouldn't be the ones looking at ourselves too. This is the same idea. Doctors don't operate on themselves. Everything that they have learned about medical care is from outwards going to other people.
Right.
The moment you then try to apply that same kind of work and knowledge inwardly, it doesn't work. Doctors need doctors, right? So in the same way, yes, have your conviction. Yes, spend some time being self-aware. But like, I'm telling you, dude, if your life does not reflect one already that is of obedience, and I want to do, and I yearn to do what God asked me to do, and I want to get rid of this sin in my life, because we're never going to be perfect, but I'm running from these things. That is kind of a prerequisite for you being able to kind of talk about what you think is okay for you. Because I'm telling you, if you're running from God, you ain't got a clue. Because if you knew it was best for you, you'd stop running.
Nah, I got him.
Right. So some of it is a delicate dance. I would say a lot of people who had the loudest opinions on this kind of stuff, at least when I think about myself at 18, 16, 21, all those kind of things, I had a loud opinion because I knew I was wrong.
And that's usually the telltale
You know what I'm saying? I was just like, maybe I could convince a couple people, but like,
and God hates you, but what about you, huh?
You get hit with all the time. The most
Matthew 6
frustrating.
comes up.
Yeah.
All the time, bro. You're trying to get the specs, but your beam. Matter of fact, you got 6 beams in your eye.
Yeah, it's God, I think, in a lot of ways being like, see, you want the fruit, but you want to get it any way you can. You want to get it your way. And the issue is that what you plant and how you plant determines what you reap. So it doesn't matter what you want. This is something that Whitney and I, whenever we're talking with people just as friends and we're trying to lovingly kind of give them guidance and counseling. And now even as Whitney, as a 3rd grade teacher, is kind of watching over these little minds, the ethic is, hey, you get to choose a decision. You do not get to choose a consequence attached to that decision.
Right.
They are connected. They are set in stone. So if you would like this outcome, then you must do it this way. And if you want this outcome, you have to do it this way. So if you say, hey, I want to be somebody, I feel convicted that God, I'm not supposed to use foul language, which, by the way, isn't just cussing.
Right.
Okay? And so I want to be somebody that has a pure heart and a pure mouth towards God. Then you can't also be filling yourself with the kind of content that makes that difficult. And then act surprised. I just can't control my mouth. It looks like you can't control a lot of things. You can't tell your body no to listen to some songs. That's a telltale sign.
Right.
I can't tell my body no. Who's got who?
Right.
It's tough.
Right.
It's not easy.
And that's the thing, like, especially going back to the language piece, it's like, it's not the verse itself. There's 2. One says cursing, that you should not curse your brother.
Yep.
Other says obscene talk.
Yep.
And then there's another one that a lot of us skip over, gloss over. Coarse jesting, which is dirty jokes.
Yeah.
Boy, conviction, immediate. I say too many of them.
Sure.
They're just so funny.
They're just so funny.
But the word tells me otherwise.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that I'm perfect in any of these regards.
Right.
And I wish I was, truthfully.
For sure.
I wish I was, truthfully, but I know that, like it says, if whatever measure I'm going to use to judge somebody else, I better be prepared to have that measure used against me.
Right.
And so I was saying, like, I like what you were saying about the self-awareness piece. To be self-aware enough to know that you can't see everything about yourself.
That's right.
That's true self-awareness. Not just the self-awareness is know how you're feeling, when you're feeling, why you're feeling. I think that's a major part of it. But to know when you need outside, that's wisdom.
Yep.
That's just wisdom.
It's really good.
And so that's now we're about to go back into our Friends episode.
Right.
Back then. Dang, it seemed like so long ago, by the way.
Yeah, it was a long time.
The tough part is, I feel like a lot of people. Ooh.
Let 'em cook.
The tough part about that, about allowing people to have a window into our lives, we have a bunch of windows, but they don't see past the skin.
Wow.
That's it. A lot of people can see us, but a lot of people don't know us.
Yeah.
Because either A, trauma from past things.
Yep.
B, we're afraid once they see the real us, they're going to judge us.
Yep.
And they're going to talk about us. And they're
And
going to
gonna leave us. Yep.
God sees you in your entirety and he still chooses you.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm not saying go out there and air your dirty laundry because it's just not wise.
Absolutely.
Be wise in who you allow into
Absolutely.
your life, because everybody just genuinely does not have your best intent at heart. That's where discernment comes in. Holy Spirit activate in that area for you.
Yeah.
And for me as well. But you got to let people to see the dirty.
Yeah.
Because guess what? If somebody looks into your life and sees something that they don't like, that has nothing to do with you. Has everything to do with their response.
Right.
Unless I took that dirt and I threw it on them. Then that's a you thing, because you didn't have to take that dirt and throw it on them. Now, if they clean themselves up, wash themselves clean, say, hey, man, I forgive you, I love you, you need to keep that person in your life.
Yeah.
Because they genuinely care about you.
It's good.
But you also need to be prepared for when they say, hey, I still love you, but I can't be around you anymore. You got to be prepared for that as well.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the window into our life, you gotta let people pass skin deep.
Yep.
We have too many surface level relationships. A lot of times the reason that is because we have a surface level relationship with God.
There it is.
Like, I've made him my savior, but I have not made him my Lord.
Yeah.
I'm not doing what he's telling me to do.
I'm still king.
Yep. I'm not taking his orders. I'm definitely not doing them because I'm not taking them. I'm not listening. I'm not even in the court.
Yeah.
I'm standing outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or matter of fact, I took the king out.
I'm
You're outside.
gone.
I'm in the throne and I got it guarded and you can't come in.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, yo.
No, it's so true. It's so true. The last thought that I had about it, I mean, really just because it's a practical application that I've walked through this week. When it came to anger, and you know, I've been really kind of considering going to therapy pretty soon, and kind of unraveling and unpacking some of just being able to make peace, and not just make peace, but to kind of reintegrate allowing myself to be emotional and to express them in the moment, instead of kind of this like top down. A lot of times what we see whenever you have experiences where you can't express things in a healthy way, or you're not kind of taught how to do that, they kind of describe these kids as like running from the heart and they escape to the head. Like everything is just logical. Everything is just, it's like, cause it's a safe distance, you know? And so there were two moments in the same night last week that I had an interaction with my wife, and she was like, oh, hey, that was aggressive. That was this. I didn't like that. And I remember the first one I'd give it to her. I was like, yeah, I think that one was probably over the line. The second time it happened, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I saw it that way. Like, honestly, I know what my intention was. I don't think it happened like that. And then I had a conversation with her the next day after work where I invited her into it. And I told her, hey, you get to speak into that. You get to tell me when something is over the line. You get to tell me when something is too aggressive. Because if I'm being honest, I don't know how to self-regulate this emotion in particular, because I haven't had to for a long time. And I'm quite used to kind of bending over backwards trying to give somebody an excuse. I'm quite used to being like, maybe they're having a really hard day. Maybe I just like over and over, I just pick not just mercy, but like, I'll let you get away with a murder. And so
Blind eye.
correct. And so a lot of times too, Whitney comes home, is like, man, this person did this, and this. And like, yeah, maybe they're having a hard day. She's like, will you be mad? Like, can you be mad that I was wronged? And I'm like, honestly, it's really hard for me. And so
I'm right there with you.
I told her, I was like, you get to tell me when it was too much. I trust you with that. I don't think my eyes on that problem is a good set of eyes, because I wouldn't know what I'm looking for anyway. You get to tell me. That sucks. That's almost humiliating. It's quite frankly embarrassing to be like, yeah, I know myself enough to know that I probably shouldn't trust my judgment in this area for this season. So I'm going to lean on you.
Humility, though.
And I'm going to trust you to do it. The self-awareness in that piece is knowing, man, I just can't see clearly here. I just don't know what it is. I've never seen it explained. I've never seen it modeled. I just don't know what I don't know here. And so it would be beneficial to me and everyone else in my life if I did not decide what was right and wrong in that area. And instead, I allowed somebody else who's got eyes on me, that loves me, cares about me, and knows who I normally am to be able to point out that was different. That came from a different place. That wasn't you. What was that? Let's talk about that. The humility to say, yeah, I am submitting myself to what you have to say in this area, right? Sometimes you can have strong opinions. That's fine. You can have strong convictions. That's fine. I think if you always have those and you're only that kind of person, you have no area in your life. You're like, this one, I don't know about. I don't know. I'm kind of bent this way. I kind of like this, what I like over here. And so I'm going to trust you with that instead. And you know, I already hear kind of the response. Well, I don't have anybody in my life that can do that for me. 2 quick points. God is more than capable of doing that.
Factual.
And in a lot of seasons, he's teaching you to lean on him. And not other people.
Yeah.
And secondly, you haven't been promised that you're going to have that person in every season of your life. That's an expectation you and I have made up. When we do have it, it's a grace. It is a gift of God's grace. And oftentimes we don't have it because we don't know how we would steward it. We'd blow it up. So I get it. It's frustrating. You're not always going to have the perfect set. But if you have people that care about you and love you, it is not too much to ask, will you just watch my back in this area? Because I can't see everything. I don't got 360 vision. I need you to cover me. And I need you to be able to tell me. And when you bring up something, now, if somebody else that didn't know me very well brought up that, I don't think I'm going to listen to you.
Right.
But Whitney, my wife, you have that authority. You have that ability to speak into that moment, and I will listen. I won't explain it away. I will listen to what you have to say, and I will put myself under it. Humility. You don't get to be who we want to be without it.
And that's huge, bro. Cause I did the same thing with Brian last year with me. I was like, hey, bro, it's a very specific scenario. I was like, hey, if you ever hear me saying X, Y, and Z about X, Y, and Z, I need you to check me immediately, because this is not coming from a heart of humility. This is 100% pride, and I'm looking at the situation based off of what I would think I would do or what I think is right, and they are not me. Yeah. And so if you hear me saying this, I need you to check me immediately. I don't care what it's like. You need to say, hey, bro, you tripping. No, that ain't. We don't talk about like that. We don't do that. It's necessary. You need it. But anyway, I think you said everything that needs to be said about that.
Yeah. Accountability is hard.
Accountability is hard, but it's worth it.
And you need it. Everything affects you.
You need it. Everything does affect you.
Been a good episode, man. Once again, our condolences out to Drake and his family. That's tough, man. That's tough. K-Dot. I saw a video today. He got grannies dancing on his grave, bro. It's crazy.
That's nuts.
It's crazy. It's nuts out there. Y'all stay safe.
Y'all stay safe in these streets, fam. Don't do nothing to your friend. You have a diss track out on you. That would be tough. And you hope you can say something back. Because actually, you know what? If somebody diss you, tell them thank you. Oh, tell them thank you, and ask him to diss me again. Track.
Oh, okay.
And tell them diss me again. Because you don't have to retaliate all the time.
Yeah. And if you didn't hear about this beef until we just brought it up, honestly, impressive.
Yeah.
Don't look into it. You don't need to hear it. If you avoided it this long, you might as well. The moment is moving on anyway. Yeah, culture is moving on, right?
The world is still spinning.
Maybe if he drops something else soon, whatever. Yeah. Now you got some context. And especially if you're like some of us, you're like, hey, I used to listen to that and I don't get it. You don't got to worry about it.
Yep. Don't worry about it. Don't go.
I'm impressed you haven't found out.
Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Don't worry about it.
Just let it go.
Just let it go.
Well,
this has been
Lessons and Blessings.
And Blessings, yes, sir.
Great episode.
Bye.
Bye.